Zack, the fellow on the right, is quite the dev powerhouse, and he was a big piece of what basically got Given Time to you. He did aspects of QA. He did a ton of design, aspects of production, all kinds of wrangling, moral support, you name it. That sort of youthful optimism that we all crave, and we were basically leeching it off him to keep the project moving and get it out the door. So that's Zack. He was underselling himself as a developer who worked on both of the games. I'm Richard Flanagan. I am, I guess, technically an indie and AAA veteran at this point. And I joined Given Time about a year ago to be another set of eyes in sort of design aspects, especially on Given Time, to sort of help them shape what they'd already built. Ultimately, there was a lot of good game here when I came on. In fact, it was kind of done. So my role was small, but I kind of helped them kind of like contextualize: is this good? Is it not? Are we crazy? And that was kind of my piece of the puzzle.
I, for one, definitely appreciated your feedback and assistance with working on the various different puzzles. Because it's like, I've been steeped in these things for a long time, like upwards of like two-ish years before we kind of hopped onto the project. And it's very nice to have that external perspective.
Cool. Okay, speaking of puzzles, we're digging in here.
Yeah.
Zack, remind me where we got to on the launch day stream. Kind of what sort of level of gameplay or how far we got into Given Time the last time we played.
So on the launch day, we had kind of gotten to the point where we finished the early tutorial introduction eggs, and we had, or the Brine Wisp row, as they're called in game, and we had started doing some of the middle game ones. I think if we take a look here, we did the what we internally called race thieves, but they're also called swift hectors. The one for shore specifically, and then I think we did the platforming challenge that's on the east side of Ozu.
Right, on the spires there. Yeah.
And then
so this screen that you guys are seeing now, for those of you that have already played, it's probably pretty familiar. But on each of the islands, we kind of have these glyphs, these kind of mysterious glyphs, and we're getting an idea of kind of the stuff that we need to kind of take care of. So, as Zack was saying, I think he tackled one on the spires, one on Ozu, and I'm not too sure. Where are we now? Oh, we're on Ozu right now. So these are kind of like, you got to kind of hunt them down. You got to kind of use your tools, your resonator, and what have you, to figure out where this stuff is and to kind of explore this open world. And you can tackle this stuff in any order you want. So I don't know, Zack. What are you feeling? Like, what are you kind of feeling like since we're on Ozu? What do you feel like doing?
Feeling like it might be a good idea to go kind of... Since we're on Ozu, we could probably tackle the other... There's two left on Ozu. There's one that's pretty interesting that involves dealing with the gloaming, which is something that, we didn't really deal with in any other aspect of the main campaign, besides for the one major, or the two major story beats that involve it. And then the other one, which I actually can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, it's the Throng dispersal. I think
Throng dispersal.
I think we haven't done that one. So
okay, well, let's dive in. Let's do some exploring.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I want to thank all the folks who showed up for this stream. It's great having you guys here. Please fire any questions your way, especially design-oriented ones. Zack and I are both knee-deep in that. But yeah, so what's your approach to, you parked, you're taking off from shelter. What's your kind of approach for hunting down a new egg?
Well, first off, I'm going to put myself not in Twilight, because Twilight is very, very pretty, but it's also kind of dangerous because we're getting close to the gloaming and it's much harder to navigate. As anyone who's played the game is aware, when you're in the gloaming, it like starts overheating your scramjets when you're in the light of, or like what I can't remember exactly what Isao says, but it's like gloaming's, I don't know, I can't remember those details, but it's like whenever you're visible to the large planet, it's continuously doing damage to your shields. Phosphenes start showing up, and it's just overall significantly more dangerous. So generally, I hop into morning, and then I just kind of equip the resonator and just kind of search around and see which of the glyphs looks most interesting to me at the moment. And I think we're going to go for the one that looks like a circle. Oh, I think we did the wrong one already, but there's the one that involves the brine wisp twisters. That one's an interesting puzzle.
Yeah, the brine wisp twisters. Hard to say. Were definitely one of the big aha moments for me when I was playing the game. Excuse me, my cat, a very old cat, has to join. We've got some interesting questions kind of coming up in the chat, and one of them was, is this part of Given Time? So my sort of answer in the chat was yes, it is, but more specifically, there's a bunch of these sort of environmental scenarios that you need to kind of figure out in Given Time. There's quite a few. I don't recall how many eggs there are. Zach, maybe you recall?
It's been a little bit since I did the number, but I think it's around like 20 or 30. It's definitely not too much more than 30.
Yeah, it's high 20s at least. And there's all of these sort of kind of environmental scenarios where you're presented with these systems and things that you can figure out. And what we're showing now is kind of like the middle meat of it, where these puzzles and these sort of scenarios or these problems start to become a little bit more complex, but not brutal. So there's kind of like 3 tiers in the game, and I don't think we'll get to the final, what we call hard scenarios in this stream, but we will kind of make some good progress on these sort of middle ones that really cover a lot of the gameplay and a lot of the options. So, Zach, what are you doing here?
So we've found one of the floros that tend to be associated with the eggs, and I followed the signal through, and it's pointing directly towards here, and it's like, this is a interesting thing. We have not seen too many of these be closed. Normally when we come across them, they're already open. There's a couple that we've seen that have been closed, so it's like, okay, well, we have to figure out how to open this. There isn't a throng around, so we can't really disperse that, but if we scan it, we notice that it's called a void floro versus like any of the normal floros, and it's akin to void goat bloom. And there just so happens to be one over here where these roots conveniently lead us to. And these things are, a bit of a different version of the regular goat bloom that seem to be looking for phosphenes, which we know that those kind of like start showing up more towards twilight and gloaming. I think we can pull open some details about them maybe after we get away from these pests, because these things... Yeah,
get rid of those pests before you open your PDA, as it were. But,
we have the...
Yeah, so there are a bunch of different types of Goka Blooms in this world, and there's different ways to basically activate them. And it took me a while when I was playing the game to get used to some of the sort of language that's kind of built in, but this idea of things being akin, so they kind of have this partnership, this symbiosis, or this duality with another entity in the game. So Zach's discovered that, okay, this Goka Bloom seems to be related to this sort of flower, this floral flower, and okay, what do we do? How do we deal with this void Goka Bloom? And as Zach is pulling up here in the data, or in the findings, it's that thing needs phosphenes. very aptly named, probably the coolest named entity in the game, scientifically proven, as a matter of fact. But yeah, so what are you looking at here, Zach?
Just kind of reading up some data on phosphenes because, it's been a little bit since I played this game, and I just kind of wanted to refresh myself on all of their general properties. And if we look here, generally it says that these show up in gloaming and twilight. We can see that in their description as well as in their science data. They're active during twilight and gloaming. And so, I'm just going to hop into twilight and then see if we can find any nearby, because I imagine there probably are some.
So, Zach mentioned this a bit earlier, but there's a pretty rich, like, time of day sort of cycle that happens in this game. Different sort of entities become more prevalent or active during different times. And when you establish shelter, you can pop down, you can take a nap, a little jet nap, all good. And you can decide basically when you want to wake up. And you can say, I want to wake up in the morning, which I love to do because the music in the morning is always beautiful. But you can also decide to wake up at slightly more dangerous times. In this case, Zach's waking up in the gloaming when the environment starts to become quite dangerous. And luck behold, I think I see a phosphene in the distance over there.
I actually hop into twilight, so we're not quite as dangerous yet. Because, sometimes these guys show up a little early, which is nice. Another fun fact that these guys also seem to be associated with hindstone prisms. Not by much, but, they tend to show up around where they are. So if you spot these, you can generally find a phosphene.
And they nasty. They're gonna mess with you.
They're really nasty. It's been a little bit since I've dealt with them.
So you're basically luring them towards the void Glokabloom, yeah?
Yep. We're just kind of pulling this guy over here. Is he having trouble getting over the hill? No, he's coming straight at us. We'll just wait over here and lure him into this, trap that they're completely unaware of.
So we have a question in the chat. So yeah, there is a dynamic dynamic day and night cycle in the first chapter in the Far Shore. Correct me if I'm wrong, Zach. Some of those day and night aspects were a little bit more curated. Okay, cool. So we're back up. So there was a good question about the day-night cycle. It is dynamic and it does change as you play. This environment will cycle through these different states. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, Zach. So Zach's actually. I'll wait for him to bring this egg to the ocean.
We'll wait. Let's talk about the day-night cycle. I'm just going to go over to the shelter so that we're not running into the gloaming.
So in given time, the day-night cycle is this dynamic thing that happens, and it will affect. Oh,
okay.
Okay, looks like it's going in there. Yeah. Did it make it?
Not quite. It's okay. I'm just going to pause while we're talking.
Okay.
Shelter.
But yes, in given time, it's dynamic. But correct me if I'm wrong, Zach. In the Far Shore, it was a little bit more curated for narrative purposes. So when you kind of encountered a scenario, like a story beat scenario inside the Far Shore, the time of day may have been kind of curated for narrative purposes. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. Time does pass naturally in many locations, but then you'll run up into time will get locked in a point so that you don't have to run into the gloaming in a scenario that we don't necessarily want you to.
Mm-hmm.
But once in given time, it's also a bit curated until you essentially, I think, finish the first egg on shores.
Right. So basically, actually, yeah, Zach's right. So the very first egg, and maybe a little bit after that in given time, there is a little bit more curation and designer control of the day-night cycle. But after that, like, the training wheels are off. The world starts operating on its own rhythms. These entities start doing their own things. It's up to you to basically kind of weave between them and figure out how to solve these scenarios. Another question came up, and I'm going to wait for Patrick. Where was that question? The Goblin Gooper. How many iterations did the controls for Scouts go through over development? That's a really good question, and it's one I'm actually really interested in too. But that'll be definitely a question for Patrick. We're expecting Patrick to hopefully join a bit later, but that's kind of his jam. I think that the controls, for myself, I love the controls of this game, but I also think that they take a lot of getting used to. There's a high skill ceiling, and I think that's really rewarding. And I don't know how conscious this was. I think it was maybe a little bit subconscious, a little bit conscious. But I know that Craig, the creative director, and I both share a deep love of snowboarding. And there's a lot of aspects of snowboarding that I feel like the controls in this game capture. A lot of momentum, a lot of choice, a lot of risk and reward. And when you first start learning to snowboard, it's tough. You know, you get your ass kicked by the hill. But after some time, you start to develop this kind of awareness, this sort of momentum awareness. And I feel like this game does that really well. But we'll wait for Patrick to come in to answer that question. I have a feeling there are a great many iterations, because this game has been in development for 10 or if not a little bit more years. Yeah, it's been a bit from my understanding.
No, for me there weren't a whole lot of revisions on the pilot controls. There's a couple of revisions on the pilot controls, I think, during the time that I was working on the original campaign, but then after that there was no additional revisions as far as I know for pilot controls, just because there's not really a whole lot of on-foot sequences in here, but I know there's definitely been plenty in terms of the jet controls.
You know what? I may have misunderstood the question. Are they for the jet, or are they for the on-foot controls?
I guess it probably depends on that context, because it's like the pilot could be either, because you're technically still the pilot even when on foot, but it could have also just been in relation to the jet. I know we did tweak some things for the release of Given Time, just based on feedback of the Far Shore and just our own experiences after having played the game for a while.
So what is it you're harvesting here?
Oh yeah, so one of the things that I like to do when I'm just kind of like running around, I'm not really running low on health, but I like to collect shings for health kits. So these little guys here are called whelks, and when you hop near them, they release a shing, which you can grapple. And then when you collect 5 of them, they will give you a repair kit that lets you repair 1-star Jett's health. I know, because I have some forethought or foresight for what we're going to be doing, we're going to be dealing with some tricky guys later. So I want to actually be like fairly well stocked in terms of like repair kits for later, just so that when we go and deal with them, I don't have to like search them out later.
I have a hunch you're pretty well stocked. So you brought that egg to the brine. What's the next plan of attack? What's your next project?
I've also happened to bring us to the location of the next egg.
Oh yeah, this one's cool. This one was a big aha moment for me. This is when I felt like, oh wow, this world is much more systemic than I think I first realized. It was like, oh wow, all of these things are connected. Anyway, no spoiler. Go ahead.
So we're here. We're a little bit off the coast of Ozu. The continent's a bit over there. It's a nice little space. We've got a whole bunch of little rocky islands, and then we've got the old brine tusk hanging out here. And it seems like the egg is at the top, or the brine tusk row is sitting at the top of this. And it's like, how are we supposed to get up there? It's like,
can you jump that?
Not really. Seems like it can't really get a whole lot of traction on this thing. Yeah, we can't really get up there. So we're gonna have to figure out some other way of getting up to that location. So we'll take a look around and see what tools we have at our disposal. As we talked about earlier, we got some whelks around here, but those don't really like help with getting higher up. We've got lots of brine wisps hanging out, but they don't really do a whole lot besides for just like kind of hang out. They disperse throng and do a couple other things that are pretty cool. They're just kind of friendly. But if you notice, they also happen to have. We've also done some stuff with these guys in the past where we have to bring a brine wisp lure to lure them around.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, that's one thing that we could do. There's a bunch of these. I cannot remember what we call them at this point. The lure limpets.
Yeah.
Little clamshells, and we've also got the kelpies. Kelpies don't do a whole lot in terms of getting us higher, but they are fun to do to stun.
Which also opens that clamshell. I see.
Huh, that's interesting. We haven't really seen these lures glow quite as much as this historically. So I wonder what happens if we drop this into ocean brine based on the science thing.
Do it.
Oh. The brine wisp seems to have really gone wild, and they've started spinning up one of these giant twisters that they normally only spin up during twilight.
That is a huge twister. Nice. Nice.
This is massive. So now we are higher up enough so we can probably drop down on top of the egg. But it's a little tricky to get this.
Oh,
we dropped
you beefed
down
it.
Too fast.
You totally beefed it, Zach.
Okay,
I'll have to give you some tips.
So what do you got for tips for navigating these?
Get good, I think is the term. You know.
Well, this time
someday you'll be a real gamer. Oh, grabbed it.
Grabbed it
Very
on the
soon.
go. We're gonna launch this into the ocean real fast.
Very good. Yeah, and this sort of cycle, this sort of like mimetic sort of cycle makes up a lot of what given time is. So, Zach, if you want to take a pause from playing, we could get Patrick in here.
Ah, yes.
And maybe he can shed a little insight on that particular question about controls.
Okay, let me just switch around some of the OBS settings real quick to make sure that Patrick will be live. Like that, and then boom, Patrick's here.
Howdy, Patrick.
Hey guys, good to
Patrick,
see you.
can you introduce yourself for the stream?
Sure, yeah. My name is Patrick McAllister, and made a kind of solo dev studio called Pine Scented Software, and collaborated with Super Brothers to bring you guys Jet, the Far Shore, and Given Time. And mostly, I mean, Craig did a lot of the more creative and artistic and direction-y side stuff, and I did a lot more of the kind of technical and building out how the game works and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a good pairing, and it was fun working together, making this cool game for you guys.
So a question came up, and I'm not sure exactly the question from the Goblin Gooper. Okay. How many iterations did the controls for the Scout go through over development? And I'm not sure if they're talking about the first-person controls or the Jet controls, but I guess answer both.
Yeah, so...
While Zach goes and hunts for some more eggs.
I'm just going to be flying around while we're talking.
Okay.
Yeah, please do. So, first, I guess, like the on-foot controls, they did go through a fair bit of iteration. I think the very first version was kind of third person, and I mean, it was like very prototyping, so there was like no animation, just sliding around basic third-person controls. And I think, I should have some links on hand, because I think there's some GIFs on that I put up as part of the JETT Dev that shows kind of like the early on-foot stuff. But I think the kind of first driving kind of vibe we wanted for on-foot is we wanted it to feel very distinct. We wanted it to be like, in the Jett, you feel, kind of more empowered, and you can go boost around and go fast and get stuff done. Whereas kind of the on-foot is, we wanted it to feel a lot more kind of vulnerable to this alien world in some way, right? We wanted you to kind of feel a little claustrophobic, like you're kind of stuck in this suit, and you don't really have kind of full flexibility. So, and kind of the way that got expressed was, a lot of people I think have kind of talked about how the first person controls feel kind of weird and tanky, and a lot of that comes from that place, and it's gotten way better since those first iterations, because it was kind of much slower, and I think you can still see a little bit, like, as you turn your head, like your whole suit kind of doesn't turn immediately with you. You're kind of like looking, kind of see the corner of the helmet as you're like kind of getting the body turned around. But yeah, like everything got sped up, because no one likes being forced to go slow in a video game. So things over the years and many iterations kind of got more in line with kind of what you'd expect from on foot, but it's still a little kind of weird.
It's interesting that you described kind of the kind of emotional intent, though. And also, Zach, I had no idea you could get out here. I never got out here and just enjoyed the view. That this is a cool spot.
This is one of few areas that you can get out on foot in given time, just kind of at any point.
Yeah.
Just kind of enjoy the vibes of Stormy Bay from a safe distance.
Yeah, and just appreciate the anemone-like sort of, the tongues as you walk through them,
Yeah, cool. And I think and one of Andy's favorite kind of sound effects that Shell the Pit put in is the footstep sounds of walking on these necrotic oak bloom. It's like cool. They've got a really weird, squishy, squeaky feel to them.
Loopy sounds. But
yeah.
I, for one, actually kind of really like the on-foot sequences, they're mostly narrative and just kind of vibey, so they're a little tanky, but I also kind of enjoy them because they kind of make you feel like you're really moving around in the space a bit more, at least from my perspective anyway.
Yeah, that was another thing, especially with kind of bringing it in to on foot, was kind of midway through the development, one of the things, and this is a great example of the kind of sequence into the Jett. One of the things we wanted to do with on foot was to really kind of reinforce the sense of scale. So there's a few moments like this where we just wanted to be like, okay, this is actually kind of the scale we're working with, and kind of give you a sense of appreciation for kind of the large list of stuff. So I think the Jorgen Koloth, I think is the official name. There's a moment before that kind of encounter where we try to kind of okay, when you're on foot, it feels like this when you see this big creature. And stuff.
I remember one of the biggest moment, the first moment that I ran into that really made me feel like, oh, this world's massive, is there's a small sequence on spires in the far shore where you're trying to figure out what happened to Jones, where did she end up, what is this distress signal, and you find Caro crashed and you land in there talking to her. Occasionally you can see the papas kind of the deer-like creature just kind of moving around down there, and it's oh, those are massive compared to you as a person. Whereas like when you're in the jet, it's like, oh, you're, they're kind of small.
They're a couple pixels big. Yeah. No, I think it's an interesting contrast, that sort of sense of scale. And I think you guys, I think it makes the game very unique. Like I can't think of a lot of other examples of games that sort of achieve that sense of like contrasting scale. Someone from the chat had a very technical question for you, Patrick.
Okay.
Does frame rate change camera sensitivity? And I don't know the answer. My hunch is it's not as simple as that, but there you go. Some math stuff for you.
It's not intended to, but I think that it's possible that it does more so now, and especially I think I don't know, I've always taken steps to avoid it, but kind of a little bit before release, some people's feedback on the demo kind of refreshed our kind of concern about the stutteriness of how the game felt, and Richard was kind of pretty key in kind of helping kind of bring the spotlight on that.
Real gamer.
And
real gamer.
Yeah. It's sad, but I don't know. It's hard for me to like. I don't know. Probably more just I've gotten used to it after this game for so many years. But anyway, so part of kind of smoothing that out, and I don't know. I don't think we want to go into a ton of technical detail, but just to do with the timing at which those checks are happening. I think it's possible that it is more sensitive to frame rate now than it was before. But I'd have to, dig in more and kind of take a look.
Well, I will say that...
And then I think there's also a potential difference between mouse and gamepad, just because those are, I think early on in the mouse controls, it was also even resolution dependent, and then we did what we could to try to alleviate that stuff, but could use more work potentially.
I don't know. I feel like it's settled somewhere really, really nice and smooth. Like there was definitely some iterations that were. Anyway, I think Patrick, you really found a nice balance with the what's in the current release. I think it feels really smooth. It feels more responsive. As someone who's like a nerd about game feel, I feel like it does feel more reactive. But anyway, it gets tricky.
I definitely know that I didn't touch the game in a while, and like when I picked it up again, kind of like because I'd taken a bit of a break after my role kind of like finished and I was winding down on the project. Like picking back up for launch was really interesting because it's like, oh, we improved the some of the smoothness here with like the camera, at least from my perspective. Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because I was fine with where it was before, but it's like I'm always down for more.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I think it's definitely even I have noticed.
So what did you just do there, Zach? You lured those snaky jerks over to that Goka Bloom? Is that what I saw?
Yeah, so scattered around the game, there's a couple of these... What are they? I don't remember. They're called Electric Goka Bloom. From what I remember, at least the code name on the back end.
Voltaic.
Voltaic, that's the word. Yes, Voltaic Goka Bloom. So the only way to really bolster these and like bump up the Goka Bloom research number is to bring eels towards them because they're sensitive to electricity. So that's kind of what I did, improving my vapor tank slowly but surely. Because we're also putting...
Is that handy for? Because I thought I saw you scanning somewhere that kind of looked like it might have been an egg.
Yes.
So do you think part of that? I know that because you iterated on this, and I think I even gave you notes on this one. But is this probably part of how you're going to solve this egg?
This is a way to solve the egg. It's a little bit more of the complex solution that builds off of stuff that we haven't really touched on a ton yet of what we've experienced. But that Go Plume can get you high up enough that you can actually kind of use the more advanced like gliding technique where you kind of like wiggle the jet up and down and kind of like just kind of like stay at the same altitude over the course of time. But my plan, I was just bolstering that. My plan right now is to kind of like use the tools that we've learned so far to get access to this egg. So, this egg seems to be blocked by a geolithic mass. We've seen this before. So it's like, okay, we know to search out throng nests and try and find a resin to blow up this, or to destroy this piece of rock.
They blow up real good.
Oh yes, they blow up real good. And it's always
good particles.
Good to say hi to the Serpent Crew Kolos. Hello. Yeah. Look at that friendly face.
Another control question for you, Patrick. Bowie asked the alternative control scheme for when the scramjets are off. What did we internally call that? Tank controls? Like, I'm trying to remember.
Possibly.
In any case, what sort of led to that? Because actually, I prefer the newer alternative one. I like it.
Yeah. So, I guess. I mean, let's see. I think there's part of the feel of having scramjets off that has always been a little bit itchy, and I think it's it's hard to fully go into, I think, but let me see if I can reconstruct things. So yeah, I think it mostly goes back to a long time ago when we first were working on the mechanics for picking up and throwing objects. There was like when you were holding, at that point you had to hold down a button to go into like throwing and aiming mode, and then while you're holding that button down, like the left stick that was a stick that was normally doing other stuff. Anyway, it kind of shifted you to being kind of like an aiming reticle and was like focusing around. And there was kind of something about that kind of alternate mode that always felt like it kind of fit better for what you were doing more so while your scramjets were off, where you're kind of, it's more like, you're kind of more just looking around the environment to interact with things in kind of a slow way.
Yeah, you're a bit more like, it's a bit more tactical about your positioning, like right now. It's not about momentum. It's about, I want to line myself up here. Yeah. I want to potentially throw this thing into the ocean, as Zach's about to do. You kind of get a little bit more sort of immediate control over your positioning.
Yeah. And I think it's more just like, with the normal jet controls, like you want to be able to look a different way than you're flying, because you want to be flying and kind of seeing what's around and have that kind of awareness. But while your scramjets are off, definitely, like it's less important to independently control where you're looking and where the jet is facing. And I think like it kind of a normal kind of video game, when you're in that kind of interactive space, I think it's usually the kind where like you primarily move your character and then the camera kind of like pulls around to follow or whatever. So it's kind of, that's the vibe we're going for. And I don't know, we put it in as,
I don't know what's up with it, but
okay.
Hello. Yeah, sorry about that. It seems like the newest version of OBS might be a little unstable, but you know, that is what it is. Anyway, we were talking about the untethered versus tethered controls.
Yeah, and so Patrick was kind of wrapping up kind of some of the intention behind the untethered controls, and while Zack was tossing stuff in the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's kind of more in line with what you might expect for that kind of interaction. But yeah, we put it in very late and didn't really feel comfortable with making it the default. And then, yeah, it didn't end up coming out until, with the given time release. So not sure how many people know it exists, but we kind of tried to bring some attention in like a new kind of pop-up in the flight training sequence. So
I would highly
hopefully the
recommend
people who are interested
are all
would
of
try
those hoppas taking a nap?
Yeah, so I was
Dude.
playing around a little bit with the systematic nature of the game, where I've
That is
flavored.
funny and grim. You just like, oof. I mean, it's good. It's good that the scouts are like probably vegan and non-violent, because that is something right there. Wow,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. That's so cool.
Yeah, I think they're supposed to just be not actually dead.
Yeah, they're not dead. They're just sleeping. I stunned them with some Sama flavored vapor tank void out.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Then definitely yes.
Yes, they're fine.
When you concuss them, it's more of a gray area, but the intent is that they're just kind of
Taking a nap, you know.
These guys are
a little
very
too many snacks.
But yeah, we're hanging out on Spires. We've reached the main area of Spires. Yeah, during what we were talking about the tethered controls, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that those existed, and I personally prefer them quite a bit while playing, because I think they give you a decent, like a pretty solid amount of control while you're kind of navigating in low scramjet mode. They do take a little bit of getting used to if you're used to the other controls, but
yeah.
that's fine.
That's the big thing for me, is after playing with the other controls for so long, it's like, I think I like it, but
Yeah.
I sure have gotten used to the other way. So
I found
really
it
tell.
very intuitive. I'll be honest. I found it very intuitive.
I
So Zach, where are we right now? We're hunting for some more eggs on Ozu. Oh,
Yeah.
this one. This one.
This
one.
is
This one. Yeah, this is one of those ones. This is a very memorable one for me.
Oh yes, I think you in particular, like the build that you played when you first came on the project, had this area kind of like really bugged. Also,
Yeah, I had emotions about this egg, and then it got there, and now I think it's one of the most memorable eggs of given time for me. And I think a lot of people, it's cool. It's really cool.
certainly an interesting one, because it's like we've come to Spires a couple times before now. We played the main campaign, and it's like we've always seen this like central spire, and unless you opted to go in for the challenge, you probably haven't climbed up to the top of this. And it's like, oh, we have to get up there, and that's not easy to do. Also, just noting that this specific track of scientifics that's chiming in right now is definitely one of those things that like always screams, we're on Spires to me.
Mm.
But yeah, so it's like, okay, how do we get up here? It looks like there's a series of steps going up around the spires. So it's like, okay, so I'm guessing we kind of have to like fly and jump up each one of those, but the first one has a geolithic mass blocking it, so we're gonna have to figure out where's the resin around here.
Gotta
Luckily-
deal with that snake first.
I mean, I turn off my scramjets and he'll probably just leave me alone. I could also stun him, but I don't really want to get too
Deal with them
aggro.
later. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got some resin here. Now we're gonna have to find a... Oh, there we go. There's the ionic pool. Okay, this is kind of far away from that geolithic mass, though. This is gonna be kind of tricky.
And I feel like this particular puzzle has existed in the project for a very, very long time.
I think so too, based on like the because when I was like working on this puzzle, I was digging around and like cleaning up a bunch of the objects in the area, And it's like, there's some really old versions of objects in this space that I swapped out with newer versions.
Yeah, like, and I'm trying to recall, because I feel like it might even predate, like, the brine wisp egg concept itself, which is, but I can't remember that clearly.
Imagine it's been a little bit.
I don't want to spoil it, but I just saw your message in Slack, Patrick. That's exciting news, but I won't spoil it on the stream. The green check mark. That's awesome news. Yes. Yes, indeed.
I think I know what that's in relation to.
That's dope as hell.
These throng keep on getting on me, and I would like them to stop. But we are here, and we're going to throw the resin, and hopefully, that's close enough.
Oh, that's good.
That was
that would be a frustrating.
That was definitely one of those things that we ran into in playtests, where it's like the explosion wasn't quite large enough. But we're gonna start our journey up.
But you know what I like about this egg is there's enough flexibility. Like it proves to me how systemic and flexible it is, because if you jump just right, you can cheese
everything.
Yeah, you can cheese everything. Like, this is some real gamer tips right here. You can cheese right past that geolithic mass if you're good enough.
Very much knocked that egg way out.
Yeah. That's a part of the project that I like talking about, is how
you can cheese a
discreet to make the mechanics, I guess. Like, because, I don't know.
It's
in game design, it's generally kind of best practice to try to make things like there's the one solution, or there's like multiple solutions, but they are like intended solutions. But when you've got like a pretty complex physics-based flight model, it's like, well, it's really hard to force people not to be able to go up sheer cliffs and make it feel good. So maybe you just kind of meet in the middle and make it kind of not that easy, but
you basically,
and so
you make the par of the putt obvious. It's like, okay, we set it up. This is kind of like what we intended. But if you want to bounce your golf ball off the windmill and off the clown on the right, like, we're not going to penalize you for that. And I think that's interesting.
Demo the getting up on top spires real quick without doing the shatter shards. This is like the way that you would do it if you really wanted to like skip that whole puzzle. Which I don't think is a good idea, just because, pro tip, there will be a, what is the term, the official term, was it Griefer?
Griefer, yeah.
We do have a Griefer spire here, and he's, not here at the moment, but he will be here when we come revisit spires for later eggs. So it's worthwhile to blow this up now so you can use it later. But there's
it definitely is. Definitely do it properly. But you can
can't
also
just
do
skip
this.
it. You can't also, but you also have to be aware of the mechanics in order to be able to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that, I imagine some people probably did become aware of this earlier. But, it's not quite as obvious at first.
Yep. But now you're up here. Very cool.
Yep.
Very
and
cool.
This Floro's wilted a little bit since we hatched its egg. It's a little bit less bright. Yeah.
That's cool.
Good attention to detail, Zach.
I mean, I did spend a while, getting a lot of that stuff in sync. Okay, so we've got a couple more eggs to go in this section. It looks like all the rest of our eggs are on Sosi Massive. So we're gonna go get some
head that direction.
Lava mist vapor and move real fast.
So lava mist, which Zach's going to grab here. Actually, there's a couple different ways you can affect the vapor in your jet's tank. You can pick up Soma, which chills stuff out. You can pick up lava, and you can keep it vanilla. And I think that's it, right? You got 3 flavors.
There's also nectar. I think is that what it's
or pipa?
Officially called?
It's officially called nectar, and they're from the pipa plants. It's the pink one.
Okay, yeah.
That one's similar to Sama, but it doesn't have the stunning quality. It's just an attractant.
Right. My mistake.
In general,
it works especially well on the hectares, I think.
Yes, they're very attracted to it, where they're not as attracted to the Soma, but they can still get stunned by the Soma.
Mm-hmm. So, you've got what in your tank right now?
Well, I just ran out of vapor, so I am now out of flavored vapor. I did have the lava flavor in there, which essentially it's a risk-reward kind of vibe, where it lets you boost at I think it's a fairly decent amount faster than you normally can go at full scramjets. But while you're using it, it takes down your shields completely. So if you smack into anything, you're likely going to be taking damage, and you don't have very much. Once your shields are down, you have only 5 pips of health, and it doesn't take very long for you to lose all of it.
Yep. But if you want to move quick, it's the way to move very, very quick.
Yes. Yeah. It is a very effective way to move quick, and I think in probably the next stream, when we get to the next section of eggs, we'll be playing around a little bit more with lava vapor.
Yeah, and I'd love to know how many players find and engage with the flavored vapor mechanics.
Oh, hello.
Because I don't know, there's the project. We always kind of felt like we had to tell the players stuff, and it's one of the things. There's a handful of things that we didn't fully explain. I mean, it's there in the when you scan stuff and dig through the Scout OS. But yeah, I hope there are people out there who know about it and appreciate it.
I definitely stumbled onto it organically. Awesome. So the spicy tank, as we call it. I remember I don't know. I think I was near Ozu or near the spires, and I went over one of those cinder chimneys over the ocean, and all of a sudden I'm going what felt like 2 or 3 times faster than I had, and it was and I'd been cultivating this skill set at a specific speed, so it was really wild to feel so out of control. So that was when I first got it, and it felt cool. But yeah, I hope other people sort of stumble onto that stuff as well. Right,
yes.
It's in the data. You can read about it in the game, but I think people will stumble onto it accidentally as well.
It's not explicitly required to finish the game. It does help in areas if you figure out how to work with it and you've stumbled across it, but it's it's something that we haven't explicitly outlined. And that's actually one of the biggest hopes with the lava, with that lava flavor, vapor tank. That's one of the biggest hopes with pushing for that to be there, is to discover that organically. These cinder chimneys, effectively in terms of a game design sense, they operate as a speed boost, or a speed pad in Mario Kart kind of vibe. If you go over them, they will give you the speed boost without having to use any vapor. And it's pretty exhilarating when it happens. It's just also a lot.
Yeah, I think that was a great change we did kind of later on in the Given Time development, was make those, because it used to be more similar to the other flavors where you would get it and then you'd have to use the vapor and then you would get the boost, but it definitely feels better the way it ended up.
So Zach, which egg are you eyeballing here? The one down below, or?
I think I might go for the one down below here. It's that's the one that's kind of obvious. There's another one that we can't quite see the signal for here out in the distance. It seems to be on the tail of that Kolos. There, that's how am I supposed to get over there? That's interesting. Well, we'll come back to that. We're gonna check this guy out, because this is an interesting one, because this is a new mechanic to given time. Oh, I hear the Hector music. Or the Hector music. It's
so hard to use the proper names for the...
I know, it's weird though, because like Hectors are one that like, the name of them stuck for me. Like their internal name of Dactyl never really like made sense to me.
So my headcanon for a Hector is that Isao had a bully on their home planet named Hector. And then he traveled 1,000 years to a new planet, and then this like air traffic goblin asshole bird, he decided to name it after this dude who's been dead for 1,000 years in perpetuity forever, is named after this guy. And I that's my headcanon, is like that's why those things are called Hectors. Doesn't make any sense.
So that brings to question one that I'm actually very curious about, for the two of you at the very least, and also probably the rest of the team. Who is your favorite character in the game?
The Skeptic.
Skeptic's
Easy
pretty good.
peasy. Easy peasy for me.
Skeptic on what? In the Cradle World? At the steps?
He's in at the steps before the like after Reading Room. That Skeptic. I guess does he make an appearance? He must be in.
He's in Reading Room and
in
he's
the Far
also,
Shore as well.
Yep, he's at the very first scene of the game. Actually, he's behind the big statue. If you happen to explore a little bit there.
Yeah, played by Dustin Harbin, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Yes.
Is that his voice?
Oh, really?
I think so.
I think based on the launch stream, it sounded like it's either his voice or the character is loosely based off of him, something along those lines.
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm sure Craig will probably chime in on the chat.
Yeah. What is yours, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I ended up being partial to Vic after like the dialogue started to get fleshed out, just because I don't know, he's the engineer and I liked his jokes, but I don't know, I like all the scouts.
Oh yeah, I have a fondness for all of them, but I think I'm in the same boat where I think Vic is probably one of my favorites. I think there was Vic, or like as much as Isao like doesn't stop talking, I still kind of love Isao. He's a very, he's a good friend. He just wants to help. And
yeah, good dude.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite bugs that I ever saw was when, during the Sultide celebration, Isao appeared in the soup. That was a fun one. I think we had a Christmas card where Craig actually put Isao in the soup there.
Okay, Zach, what are we doing with this? You keep getting hit by that Hector. What's going on?
Well, I think
you scan that.
We're scanning some blimps, which are a new entity that we have not seen before. Why is their scan node so low? Anyway, these guys seem to be a little weird. They seem to react to me popping. And they make a bunch of noise, and they seem to be connected to each other. That's interesting. And they also seem to be connected to this flora. If we happen to scan it, it says that... Well, we scanned the egg. It says that they also happen to be like related to the Bulubs. And based on our context before, anything that says akin is likely going to be related. So, let's see if we can. It seems these guys active, like they move upwards when we pop near them, and they seem to activate. So if we get enough of them active, I wonder what's going to happen.
Fast enough.
We got in there just in time. Looks like
that thunder crash. Thunder crash is satisfying.
Oh yeah. That thunder crash will happen pretty much most of the times when you open a closed egg, or closed flora, as they're called in the front end. Yeah, we got that Hector was fairly persistent. Glad that he's no longer on us.
So there was a question in the chat, and I don't know if anyone on this call can answer it. And that is...
Yeah, I can...
Oh. The localization question?
Yeah. It looks like
So,
Craig chimed in, but yeah.
Okay.
For the French localization, I'm not exactly sure the nationality specifically of the actual translators, but the company that handled it was Schlock. So, yeah, I think you'd have to ask them specifically. So,
they were very pleasant to work with.
yeah.
They did like most of the collaborators, like pretty much all the collaborators that we worked with was like all incredibly pleasant.
Yep. It was a great team we had together.
Oh yes. Arrow's reminiscing.
Schlock is British, but who knows where their folks are from. UK outfit. Yeah.
I do like how when we do things on Cersei Massive, Caro has a tendency to kind of chime in when we're near ground control.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Given Time is it's a bit more lonely than the rest of the game, and it's nice to have a little bit of connection with another person in this very alien place. Okay.
Yeah. So what are you hunting for here, Zach? Just sort of getting a lay of the land, or?
I was just kind of like topping off my vapor tank. My default holding pattern in this game, I actually really like how the jet controls. So like, I actually sometimes just get lost in just flying. I'll just be like zipping around the world and kind of enjoying the experience of going around and just like swimming or like flying through these tundral curls and collecting vapor and just going fast and like engaging with like the curves of the landscape. But I think I'm gonna go for that Kolos egg that we saw earlier that's over there on the edge of the Kolos. I think I've been using this tech, but I think if I pop over here we can take a look at the science data or the I forgot what this like the equipment data that like details kind of the tech that we're going to use here. So in order to get from point A to point B, we have to use this glide technique that kind of involves essentially just like moving the jet, wheeling the jet up and down at the end of the day, and it kind of keeps you at a similar altitude. And then we get to ride on the back of this giant Kolos that made an appearance way back in the kind of intro sequences of The Far Shore. The Dredge Kolos, I think, was the final name for him?
Yeah. I believe so, yeah.
We can scan him and find out later.
He's a big boy.
Dredge.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you got company.
We do.
But you got the egg.
All right.
Got the brine wisp.
We got this brine wisp, and we're going to dunk it and ourselves into the ocean. That never gets old.
We're making good progress on the on those middle section of eggs.
Oh yeah, we're getting real close. Oh, hey Caro. Let's listen to your...
Oh, and I will appeal to those that are watching right now. If you have played the game, and if you would be so kind to leave us a Steam review, that would be fantastic. It's good for us, for visibility. It's good for the kind of feeding the Steam algorithm, as it were. We'd love to get the review count up so that more people can kind of discover this and more people can enjoy this really, really special game. So if you played it, give us a review. Mucho appreciate it. And if it's a great review, that's awesome too. But reviews are good. Reviews are good.
I mean, whatever you think of the game.
Yeah.
It's been so great hearing from people who've really enjoyed it. So it means a lot to us, just personally too.
I love seeing and hearing from individuals who just have feedback. Like, it's really interesting to hear like how people engage with this space. I'm gonna grab this. Looks like we're getting close to. You know what? We're actually gonna hang out in. We're not gonna stay till morning. We're actually gonna hang out until twilight here. We're gonna go do. I think we're gonna go do this egg, the house egg, as I like to call it.
Actually, this one really confounded me for a long time until I kind of connected the dots on. And I think this one took some iteration as well in terms of like the design, but it was also an aha moment. If this is the one I'm thinking of,
yeah,
this one in
that's how those
particular,
work.
like it was one of those things that like we hadn't quite put all the puzzle pieces. Like this is in like the design sense, like you can do any of the eggs in any order, but this is kind of meant to be the one that's most discoverable for this specific, like the throng dispersal mechanic.
Yeah.
Involving the dolphin or the brine wisps. And so it did take some iteration after like watching people play through it and kind of engage with the space to kind of like let some of this, like put some of the mechanics kind of close by and like let the player kind of discover what's around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had some support requests about this come in, being like, I don't know how to do it. So definitely, it's one of the places where, it needs a bit more kind of observation of things that aren't necessarily obvious in the environment to progress on. So
it's definitely a little tricky to kind of like navigate because it's not direct. I mean, it's like, okay, this is a thing. It's kind of weird. We got to like pull something here that we haven't really dealt with before.
Yeah, but I'm so glad that it exists in roughly this form because, I think it was a real kind of key part of the game that I always wanted to have represented, is kind of poking around, like seeing what exists and kind of putting pieces together, that kind of stuff. So
that's a big aspect of like the gameplay of Given Time, is like trying to like engage with that aspect of things where it's like you're poking around with the environment and like learning how different things engage with each other. And like this one is like, okay, you have to kind of like grab one of these lures and bring one of the brine wisps in.
Yep. And I think this was definitely one of those, definitely an aha moment for me once it clicked. And I think it's still a little abstract, but I think you're right, Patrick. I think it's an important puzzle because it kind of brings some of these entities together. And there we go.
Opened it. Let's grab this egg and we'll go dump it in the ocean, or dunk it in the ocean.
So we just got another question from Bowie, and they ask, do people mostly start with chapter 1, or do you get mails or questions from people who skipped it entirely? I'm kind of curious. Like, are we getting folks that are diving into just Given Time, like they're skipping the far shore, or is it kind of a balance? Yeah, I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, to be honest, I am too. I think most of the people who have reached out haven't particularly specified. So I think the assumption is, I mean, there's a lot of people that played the Far Shore when it came out and are coming back for Given Time, stuff like that. So it's hard to kind of piece together what people's history with the game is. So,
right.
But I think, I'd really be interested in people's takes who don't play the Far Shore and just jump into Given Time, because I think it's a very different experience, and I think it would probably be pretty fun, and a good fit for a type of person who kind of does prefer to poke around and find stuff out on their own. So
yeah, I'd be curious too.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
Yeah, because it could be, depends on the person. Like, I think there are certain types of players that would get to get like, yeah, I just want to be immersed in this, and I want to figure it out and tinker and push at the edges of the system until I've seen how it works. So, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, early on, I think we did run some play tests, some external play tests with folks who, yeah, didn't have any experience with the game and just jumped right into given time. And yeah, they went a lot better than we expected it to. It was my recollection. So, but it's going to depend a lot on the person, I think. So.
Seems we've got another egg here. I'd be very curious to know, what people's experiences are in that regard too.
Maybe we can do like a Twitter poll or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It seems we've got
or a whatever poll these days.
brine wisp row covered by another Neolithic mass, and it seems we've got a trail. We're gonna zip down that trail. So I see all the pieces, and I'm just gonna go for it. Oop! I missed the activation. Guess we're not going for it. Yeah.
Power it up.
Activated present. Let's go. And we're getting real close to later in the day, but honestly, Twilight is one of my favorite times of day in this game, just because it's just like everything's so pretty. Things that are glowing kind of like stick out. We've got the stars going on the horizon. Gok's there in its full, or Gok is getting there into its like full intensity. Tor's hanging out, kind of emitting these reverberations.
Yeah, and the more brine wisps you hatch, the more Tor gets lit up. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see the world react to your progress.
Yeah.
Blow it up!
Boom!
Zack was always really good through development of just taking beautiful screenshots and posting them on our Slack, and a good number of them were in Twilight.
Yeah,
can definitely vouch.
So we've got what we call soccer eggs, or the hefty brown wisp rows. We've got to kick them around a bit to get them to the ocean. And
Such a simple mechanic, but so satisfying. So
it's
legible, and just
It's fun.
scratches it.
It's
an
also like
itch.
one of those things that like I feel like in a lot of games you don't really like engage with the terrain as much, and I feel like this kind of like allows for you as a player to kind of like you're gonna have to like really read a lot more of the terrain than you normally would in the game, just because everything, depending on which direction you're hitting the egg or the row, you're like, okay, where do we go from here? How's it going to engage with this space?
Yeah, it makes you kind of reason with the terrain in a different way than you've been used to. So you kind of like see it from multiple angles.
Let's see
It's fun.
if we can get this. Aha! We got a boom bud pop. So that's another fun thing is like these guys, boom buds, they emit a force that launch things in general, including the egg. So if we wait till this is like past here, we can just be like bonk, and then it gets launched even further on top of our pop. It goes even further out because of the effect of the flower popping.
Huh. That is cool.
Oops, I hit that weirdly.
Nah, you're good. It's in the water.
I think we can probably get to the end. We can do these last two eggs and then, see what happens. And then we're coming to the end. We're coming to, I can't remember exactly. We've got about another 30 minutes, right?
Yep. I mean, if we find a good spot to stop slightly before, I don't think that would be the end of the world. Like, I think we've done a nice amount. Like, this is really the meat. This is like the sort of central meat of Given Time. And Zach, you've been tearing through it. Like, we're gonna do this in 2 hours. But I think the first time I played through Given Time, I must have been close to 12 or 14 hours. So you're absolutely tearing through it, and we're trying to take our time. We're trying to have conversations, but it's secondhand for us. We know exactly how it all works.
I mean, I'm not really I know with having worked on all of these puzzles pretty intensively, I'm fairly familiar with the mechanics. Oh, we've got a creeper on us for the first time today. Those are always a bit of a time to deal with. I think let's do a void out to knock that guy out. Okay, I think we...
the griefers.
Oh, yes.
So what have we here? We have an egg here. This is, what's the deal with this guy?
This guy looks like he's related to Gloak. Goak. Not Gloak. Oh, he's going to activate during the gloaming. This is certainly going to be very interesting. Okay, so I think instead of kicking around here and waiting for that to proc, we're gonna... Well, let's deal with some of these phosphenes around, because it looks like these guys are going to be real annoying to deal with if we're trying to deal with the gloaming and phosphenes at the same time. There's a couple of void goat bloom around here that I noticed earlier. So we're just gonna...
And the more of these you basically unearth or activate, or basically the more of these Goka blooms you bloom, you potentially increase your vapor tank to allow you to carry more vapor, which is pretty handy. Now, Zach's been making it look pretty easy in these middle set of eggs, but there's some eggs in the sort of last section where things get a little bit more difficult, where, at least for me, I would blow through a full tank of I have like 50, at least 50 worth of vapor, and I would, especially that one on the Ozu shores where it's really stormy. Man, I would blow through so much vapor on that.
The creepers are unrelenting in Stormy Bay.
Yeah.
Okay, we've knocked out these phosphenes, so we're gonna go and I think there's a shelter. Yeah, we got one over here. We're gonna go hang out until the gloaming fully comes into being.
This is one of my favorite parking spots in the whole game. I love this, especially during the gloaming, and probably because there are several puzzles here you have to kind of solve with gloaming in mind. But yeah, this is just one of my favorite spots to park. It's a good parking spot.
Yeah, it's pretty conveniently located.
But also just aesthetically, you have this view of you have the view of Tor, you have the looks so cool.
It's also this is an area of Soci Massif that we really don't explore in the Far Shore campaign. We kind of mostly stick to the nicer side of Soci Massif, and so this is as far as you can get away from there. It's all fjordy, and there's lots of little things to discover in the different fjords, and combined with the fact that there's a couple different challenges in this area, it's always a good time, or maybe not let's say a good time, but I do enjoy the views from here. I really like there's a shelter that's tucked away between some of the mountains over by the other end of the Mesa side. That's been one of my favorite ones on Soci Massif.
Is that the one where the Braps are always parked in your spot?
So I think there's that one, and then there's also the Forest one. They both have Braps hanging out in those locations. Those are some guys that I think, if I remember correctly, myself and Angelos, one of another collaborator from SkyMap, who we had been thinking about them because they're introduced in the early shores area of the Far Shore, but they don't really make too much. Hadn't made too much of an appearance later in the game, and so we started adding them to a couple shelters throughout the game just so that they would show up again, because it's kind of like a neat little thing.
It's a little mini game.
It's a little mini game.
Which I think I remember when I joined the project, I'm like, guys, you got to get rid of these braps. Every time, look, the gloaming is coming, like the giant pink wall of death is right behind you. And the next time you roll up to that, you get a wall of like pink omni death. And those dudes are going to be parked in your parking spot when you go back. And I was like, you have to fix this. I think it was Patrick who was like, actually, it's kind of like a little mini game. And I'm like, oh yeah, Patrick, you're right. It's really easy to solve this little mini game. It adds a little bit of totally safe tension to the experience. So now you want to get over to shelter. Mind you were just there, so I have a hunch that they won't be there, but they might be.
After a little bit of feedback during the testing process, we switched them up to be persistent, so that when you do move them, I think they don't stop you from parking anymore once. Oh, we got the dread wave appearing.
Oh yeah, look at that. That's awesome. Yes, I worked on this game a little bit. You guys worked on this game a lot. I worked on this game a little bit, but I'm not no shame in saying that this is a good looking video game. Looks so nice.
If the Dreadwave wasn't so like actually scary to deal with, it's fun to like go and like engage and like look at it from different spaces, because it just adds like a interesting like three-dimensional element to something that's like, at the end of the day, like Tor tends to be a bit of a background element most of the time when you're playing through the Far Shore at given time, unless you're engaging with it for whatever reason. And like, but the Dreadwave in given time, like, it's like, oh, that's emanating from Tor. It makes Tor into a bit more of a character. It brings it into a bit of a foreground, even though it's like kind of a set piece for a good portion of this campaign.
Yeah, and I'm really happy with how the Gloaming's kind of involvement in the finale of the Far Shore campaign played out. It adds a great kind of tension. It's like kind of one of the you really have to use your vapor to like cope with it while also doing other normal stuff, whereas kind of for most of the other parts of the game you can kind of just take a nap or whatever to not worry about it too much. So.
Got some Oakum sprouts happening around here. I wonder when these guys are going to open. It's fascinating.
I really like this little sub territory in the game, and as you said, like this section didn't really get used in the Far Shore, to my knowledge. So this sort of volcanic area, when I first stumbled across it, felt really special. Yeah,
and then we'll be back there. We'll be spending an amount of time in that zone. Yes, the Mesa Plains. It's here I've always been kind of fond of, because it's just kind of like, you know, a little bit out of the way. Okay, so we've got what appears to be interesting. Why is the egg down below? It seems I may have accidentally triggered this from a distance.
It's a systemic world, Zach.
Oh yeah.
You know, like,
well,
you blew up some boom buds. It might have shaken something loose. Next thing you know, like
earlier it was higher up in the sky. It looks like the world's used to be holding them, but now we're down here, so we're just gonna take this.
Not a bug.
Just go.
It's a feature. It's a feature. It's a living world. It's a living, changing world. You know, and these entities will behave as they're programmed to behave. So.
Hanging out up there. Let's be careful. Not wake that man. Wake him up. Wake them up, because I don't want to deal with them. Okay, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is our. I think this is the last of these Brine Wisp rows that we have currently active in this segment of the game. So we're gonna see what happens when we do this, because it looks like we got more rungs to go, but this is the last one that we currently have access to, I think. Wild's back.
Yeah, one of the viewers is remarking on the music, so I think the sound is good. Yeah.
Love the music in general in this game. There's so much interesting, like, Given Time in particular has a lot of really interesting systematic music. Ooh, what have we got going on here? Oh, that's a bit more colorful than we're used to.
Oh wow, I haven't seen this. I haven't played the game since I don't think I played a build since this got implemented.
Seriously?
Yeah. Right. I must have like tore through it. That's really cool.
It's a pretty big beat.
Well, no, I've seen this beat, but I don't remember seeing like the swirling tour. That is really cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. The kind of finishing touches on it.
Oh, yeah, looks cool.
I feel for Zhao. She's been stuck up in the ship, or up in the colony ship for such a long time. For the mother structure.
Yeah. And you'd think, zero gravity, people would rock less capes, but, it's still a lot of capes in zero gravity,
The culture is
part of the culture. It's a cape culture, It's a cape culture.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't know how much we want to talk over sequences, but these kind of interstitials were one of the kind of the major additions when we came back around to flesh out Given Time. And yeah, I think they do a good job of kind of fleshing things out and giving some narrative crumbs to the folks that are still coming for narrative. And yeah, good to sprinkle in.
Getting, I remember when we were first kind of coming back to Given Time after the launch of Far Shore, because we kind of put it down for a little bit. And it was kind of uncertain about my own involvement with the project and kind of what we were going to be doing next. And it's as we're starting to roll back up and work on the puzzles, we're starting to realize we really need to start sprinkling in some more narrative breadcrumbs and having some more interstitials where we're letting keeping the player informed of kind of as things progress. Hello, Jones. What do we got for now? Oh.
Yeah.
Some strong words.
Looks like we're going to be able to call the Dreadwave. That's interesting. That'll be nice to not have to deal with that anymore. Sounds like we got some more brine wisps, or brine rows to hatch.
Take a look at your map.
Let's check it out. What do we got?
Okay. And everything is spread out.
Oh, and we've got another set on another island of Coved. We're gonna have to. That's gonna be interesting. We haven't been back there since the finale of the main campaign, or the Far Shore. But yeah, it's interesting.
A good chunk of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So, rolling back and talking a little bit about the sort of music systems involved here, and I know Zach, you were saying that the evening is one of your favorite times, but I absolutely love the music that plays in the mornings, at
fun fact
dawn.
About that is in each. So there's some takeoff music that happens in the mornings in some areas. But then in other zones on each of the different islands, at a specific time of day, there'll be different tracks that play depending on what zone you're in. So when you take off, when you're hanging around in the morning zone on Sosi Massif on the east side, you'll have a different track that kind of like fades in and like gets you going, but on the west side, the track is a little bit like there's a different one that'll play there. And Ozu has its own version for both Stormy Bay and the more calm area. Spires, the ocean, Cobbed, and Ozu all have different like morning, midday, and evening tracks that play at specific times. And so there's a little bit of like, you know, time of day systematic music happening in those locations. So, you know, it's fun. It's interesting. You can go and feel free to, you know, go through and try them all out. They're fun.
And there's a lot of like contextual music that will play based on kind of what you're doing, right? Like I noticed when you guys do the Swift Hector, Brian Rowe races, there's a particular music for that that sort of takes over in that scenario. But there's also, you know, we have the Hector music, we have various other sort of entities have their own musical
Reapers
systems
have their own
as well.
Track. Throngs also have
Reapers,
like an ambient track that'll like come in as the camera kind of gets close to them. And then in terms of like the, you know, given time type stuff, when you're close to certain Brine Wisp Row, there will be other tracks that will fade in that are kind of like zoned tracks that are like playing while you're in a specific zone. They'll start when you get close, and then they'll kind of like fade out if you kind of leave their puzzle solve zone. Which kind of like gives each one of those eggs that we implemented kind of that stuff with a little bit more of its own identity or musical identity.
Yeah, its own flavor.
Yeah. I think, if I remember correctly, there's 2 different tracks that play for the races. For the life of me, I can't remember which ones they are, but depending on which race it is, it'll play like a different version of the track, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a lot of little bits and pieces of you know, music scattered about, and then, you know, there's other little pieces when you hit story beats and all that jazz that also play out. So when you solve an egg, sometimes we'll play a different track. We've got a plethora of like absolute wonderful compositions from Scientific in just JETT in general, and there was some stuff that wasn't used quite as much as we thought it would be fun for, so we implemented some additional tracks in locations, in ambient spaces, or just in locations around the campaign of Given Time. As well as there's a bunch of new compositions specifically for Given Time as well.
I like this little swampy section, I must admit.
Oh yeah.
I really like carving through the trees here. Full blast.
It's real fun.
Patrick, we've talked, you know, this sort of beat, this sort of aspect of communication that we talk about, the feeling of this game, and I draw a lot of parallels to snowboarding, and I know that Craig snowboards. Do you snowboard? I know that you've worked on a lot of locomotion-based things, but I'm really curious, like, how did you get to this sort of vibe of like locomotion and this momentum? Like, what do you you know, are you a weekend drifter there in Japan? Do you like, what's your do you get the Skyline out of the garage and just, you know, go for it? Like, what inspired you to kind of build this locomotive?
I mean, I don't really do anything. I don't snowboard. Another big like touch point that Craig's we've kind of touched on this project is sailing.
Right.
There's a kind of bunch of stuff that he's kind of brought as touch points, and I don't know. I mean, I think my main thing is I love physical simulations. So it's I love simulating things, and I love the kind of the feel of kind of crunchily interacting with complex shapes and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think I'm attracted to the beautiful math side of snowboarding, even though I'm like not actively engaging in it. Is probably the way I'd put it. So
Fair enough.
I don't know.
But it feels good.
Yeah, it's been fun, and it's definitely there's been a lot of iterating. In the JETT Dev post, I kind of talk about kind of a key part of the project where we've been kind of working on the flight model for a while, and Craig came out to Japan for a couple of weeks, and we were racing each other in split screen and making the flight model overly complex. We had like breaking the sound barrier and like fun drag racing setups, and also going around various circuits. So yeah, and when I go back and play those builds, it's like
they still exist.
There are good aspects of it.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I could.
I do need to play those.
That could be a fun idea for a future video.
Yeah, there's good aspects to them, but it's come so far.
Oh, for sure. But I
and,
just picturing drag racing, like Fast and the Furious-esque, like absolutely the wrong tone for the game. But I'm so curious. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It was a prototype for kind of a piloty wings type.
Right.
The scouts on the cradle world when they're younger, learning how to fly the jets, and so some of that stuff's kind of touched on in the early narrative when you're on the cradle world and stuff. So it fit the vibe of the place that we were kind of experimenting in. But yeah,
I can imagine like a young Vic like going real hard at trying to get good at the jet controls and just having a hard time at it. So remember correctly, Vic is just the science officer, as Wu is the pilot, right?
Yeah, he's kind of Wu's co-pilot.
I guess that's also something that I don't remember if it's touched on a whole lot, but like each of these jets that we have, like we have two different individuals involved in each jet, and you have like the pilot, then you have the person who's kind of like, at least in my mind, is more like paying attention to the world even more so, and like doing the research and like noting things down.
Yeah, and it's interesting in Wu and Vic's case, because like Wu portrays herself much more like gung-ho science. She's always wanting to dig in on the stuff, and so it's fun that she has the controls, so she's going off and scanning things, and Vic's kind of, I guess, storing stuff. So
I mean, like, that's one of the things that's always I find interesting about like Given Time is like we are technically in Wu's jet instead of our original jet, because that's the one that Caro had taken out, because Caro's original jet crashed and was destroyed in the Far Shore campaign. And so when she was going out, she took out Wu's jet, and so this is the one that's ready for us. And so we have this blue trail versus our original red trail, which gives like a very distinctive, on top of the already, like, I think there's some color grading that changes between the campaigns too. Like, it gives it even more of a distinctive just texture than the Far Shore campaign.
Very cool. Very cool.
Oh, yes. I think we're getting towards the end of our slot, but I think I want to kind of like end with one of my favorite scene, or one of my favorite like views of that's just in the game that I discovered a while back. So I'll go get that set up if we'd like, and then kind of probably do our sign-offs, since we've come to a good closing point.
Yep, I think so. We've completed a lot of, like, the whole middle section of Eggs, nudged aspects of the narrative forward, and are now moving into the more difficult sort of back third or back half of gameplay of the Given Time.
Oh, yeah.
There's some other pretty wild narrative stuff at the very end, but yeah, it's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and the next batch is a fair bit more involved in the kind of puzzle side of things than up till now.
Oh, yeah,
so
it's like puzzle and
it's
also
definitely a difficulty bump.
it's a bit of a challenge increase too, because there's also some piloting challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we want to get to the twilight sequence. Well, I'm having a little bit of trouble with that at the moment, so I don't know. So, you can't get us to twilight at the moment, so I'm not going to worry too much about that.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
before we wrap up, I'm going to remind everyone to please review the game if you can, and get your aunt and that cool uncle to also review the game if he bought it. That'd be rad too. Yeah, and this has been our first of, we're planning sort of 3, I guess second of 4 streams where we go through the Given Time campaign, talk through some aspects of the design. I'm not too sure who's going to be on the call next week, but we'll probably have some other perspectives, and it should be a good time. The scenarios are going to get more difficult. The challenges become more complex, and a lot of the systems start to become mixed in much more intricate ways. So I think this sort of middle section of the game was a bit more, I don't want to say lock and key, but it was a little bit more like, okay, you've tested this idea, apply it with a second variable, and then in this next section that we'll be streaming next time, you'll see multiple variables starting to interact. You start to see a lot more of the systemic mixing, and it's freaking rad. It's rad as heck, guys.
I definitely enjoy the, as we called it internally, the top egg section that's coming up, and it's definitely an enjoyable space for me. Hopefully it is for other people as well, where it does really kind of ramp up and start integrating some of the different, as Richard was saying, starts like taking some of those individual components of the game and starts like meshing them together. You really have to kind of figure out, like, puzzle together what's happening and what you need to do. Yeah.
And a big thanks to Zack for piloting us so smoothly throughout this whole experience, and thank you, Patrick, for coming by and shedding some light on the development process, technical insights, design, all that jazz. And big thank you to everyone in the stream who's asking questions and just keeping us company, because it feels good. This has been an exciting launch week, and we really appreciate all the feedback and all of the support that we've been getting. And there's we couldn't do a lot of the stuff we've been doing in the last week without the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
We'll be back same time next week. Peace.
Okay, we're logging off.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
Bye, guys.
Given time, given Brian.